The red warning lights flashed across the control room of the Mars Research Station. Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her palms against the cold metal desk, staring at the screen that showed something impossible. The year was 2157, and humanity had just intercepted their first alien communication. But this wasn't the peaceful first contact everyone had dreamed about. The decoded message was simple and terrifying. It was a hunting list. Earth was on it. Elena had been working the night shift when the deep space receivers picked up the signal. At first, she thought it was just another cosmic background noise, the kind of random radio waves that came from dying stars or colliding galaxies. But when she ran it through the translation software, her blood turned cold. The message contained detailed information about different planets and their inhabitants. Planet after planet, species after species, all marked with the same symbol. A symbol that, according to the computer, meant consumed. 12 entire galaxies had been marked this way. Elena's hands shook as she scrolled through the data. These weren't random attacks or wars between civilizations. This was systematic hunting on a scale that made her mind reel. Entire worlds had been stripped clean of life. Not just the intelligent species, but everything. Plants, animals, even bacteria. All gone. The beings responsible called themselves the Zephyrians. The communication included detailed records of their hunts. Elena watched grainy footage of creatures that looked like nightmares come to life. They stood nearly 9 feet tall, with long, muscular limbs that moved with frightening grace. Their skin could change color and texture, making them nearly invisible against any background. But what made Elena's stomach drop were their claws. Each finger ended in a curved blade that looked sharp enough to cut through steel. The Zephyrians had been hunting for thousands of years. They traveled from galaxy to galaxy in ships that defied every law of physics Elena knew. These vessels could phase in and out of solid matter, making them impossible to stop with conventional weapons. They could appear inside a planet's atmosphere without warning, bypassing any defense system. Elena called her supervisor, Dr. Raj Patel, who arrived at the station within an hour. Together, they watched more of the intercepted files. The Zephyrians documented everything about their hunts. They studied each species carefully before attacking, learning their weaknesses, their fears, their fighting capabilities. Every species they had encountered had been classified the same way. Prey. The files showed battles where advanced civilizations threw everything they had at the Zephyrians. Energy weapons, nuclear missiles, even reality-bending technology that seemed like magic. Nothing worked. The Zephyrians adapted to every attack, learned from every strategy, and always emerged victorious. But what truly horrified Elena was how the Zephyrians viewed their victims. To them, intelligent species weren't fellow beings deserving of respect. They were just another type of animal to be hunted and consumed. The Zephyrians took pride in their hunts, competing with each other to see who could take down the most challenging prey. Dr. Patel made the emergency call to Earth's Planetary Defense Force within hours. Commander Torres was reviewing the same files on Earth. The military leader had seen combat in the Mars colony wars and the Jupiter mining conflicts. But nothing had prepared him for this. The Zephyrians were already on their way. Long-range sensors confirmed what the communications had revealed. A massive fleet of biomechanical ships was moving through space toward the Sol system. They would arrive in less than 6 months. Elena spent the next few days diving deeper into the alien files. She learned that the Zephyrians had evolved on a world where everything was a predator. They had fought their way to the top of their food chain by becoming perfect hunters. Their society was built around the hunt. They had no art, no philosophy, no culture beyond the pursuit and consumption of other life forms. What made them even more dangerous was their technology. They didn't build machines in the traditional sense. Instead, they grew them. Their ships were living creatures that had been modified and enhanced over generations. These bioships could heal themselves, adapt to new environments, and even reproduce. If needed, the Zephyrians themselves had been enhanced beyond their natural limits. They could absorb energy from the weapons fired at them, making them stronger with each attack. Their bodies could phase through solid matter, allowing them to walk through walls or survive in the vacuum of space. They had perfect night vision, could track sense across light years, and possessed reflexes faster than any computer. Elena discovered that they hunted in packs, using sophisticated strategies that they adjusted based on their prey's behavior. If a species tried to hide underground, the Zephyrians would flush them out with sonic weapons. If they tried to fight back with technology, the hunters would simply absorb the energy and become more powerful. The most disturbing revelation came when Elena found their assessment of humanity. The Zephyrians had been watching Earth for decades. They knew about human technology, human society, and human psychology. They had classified humans as moderate difficulty prey with interesting pack dynamics but limited adaptive capability. They were wrong about that last part, but they didn't know it yet. Commander Torres assembled Earth's top scientists and military leaders for an emergency meeting. The situation was desperate. Earth's most advanced weapons were energy-based, which would only make the Zephyrians stronger. The planetary defense grid relied on technology that the aliens could simply phase through. Traditional military thinking wouldn't work against an enemy that had defeated civilizations far more advanced than humanity. Elena presented her findings to the assembled group. She showed them footage of the Zephyrians in action, demonstrated their adaptive abilities, and explained their hunting patterns. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Kim Chun, the head of the Global Defense Research Institute, raised a troubling question. If the Zephyrians had defeated species with technology beyond humanity's current capabilities, what possible advantage could Earth have? Elena had been thinking about the same question. She had noticed something strange in the alien files. Every species the Zephyrians had encountered seemed to rely primarily on technology for defense. They built bigger guns, stronger shields, faster ships. When those failed, they had nothing else to fall back on. But Earth might be different. Elena had studied biology before switching to communications research. She knew that Earth's evolutionary history was unique in many ways. The planet had experienced multiple mass extinction events, forcing life to adapt rapidly or die. This had created an incredible diversity of survival strategies. More importantly, it had created predators unlike anything the Zephyrians had encountered. Elena suggested that the research team investigate Earth's biological weapons program, which had been kept classified for security reasons. She suspected that humanity's real strength lay not in their technology, but in their planet's natural systems. The meeting ended with a desperate plan. While the military prepared conventional defenses that everyone knew would fail, a secret team would explore Earth's biological advantages. They had less than 6 months to find something that had eluded civilizations across 12 galaxies. As Elena left the meeting, she looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, an army of perfect predators was heading toward Earth. They had never been defeated, never been challenged, never even been slowed down, but they had never hunted on a planet where everything had learned to fight back. Earth was about to teach the galaxy's apex predators what real hunting looked like. 3 weeks after the first alien transmission, Dr. Elena Vasquez found herself standing in front of a door that wasn't supposed to exist. The Global Genetic Research Institute had always been known for its work on crop improvement and disease prevention. But hidden beneath the main facility, 5 levels underground, was something else entirely. Dr. Alex Morrison, the Institute's director, led Elena through a series of security checkpoints that required everything from fingerprint scans to DNA verification. The deeper they went, the more Elena realized that humanity had been preparing for something like this for decades. Even if they hadn't known what that something was, the final door opened to reveal a laboratory unlike anything Elena had ever seen. Massive tanks filled with swirling liquids lined the walls. Computer screens displayed genetic sequences that seemed to shift and change as she watched. And in the center of the room stood Dr. Keiko Tanaka, the woman who had been leading Project Apex for the past 20 years. Project Apex was humanity's deepest secret. Dr. Tanaka explained that it had started in 2087 when scientists first began to understand that Earth's evolutionary history was truly unique. While other planets they had studied showed steady, gradual development of life forms, Earth had been through constant upheaval. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, and mass extinctions had forced life on Earth to become incredibly adaptable, but more than that, Earth had developed something special. It had created predators that could hunt other predators. Elena watched as Dr. Tanaka brought up holographic displays showing Earth's food webs. Unlike the simple predator-prey relationships found on other worlds, Earth's ecosystems were incredibly complex. Predators here didn't just hunt herbivores. They hunted each other, creating layers upon layers of competitive evolution. The project had been studying these relationships for decades, but with a specific focus. They wanted to understand what made Earth's predators so effective. What they discovered changed everything they thought they knew about life itself. Dr. Morrison showed Elena footage from their research stations around the world. In the Amazon, they had been studying how poison dart frogs had evolved toxins, so powerful that just touching them could kill creatures hundreds of times their size. In the deep ocean, they watched as anglerfish used bioluminescent lures to trick prey into swimming directly into their mouths, but the most incredible discoveries came from studying pack hunters. Elena watched in amazement as wolves coordinated complex hunting strategies that involved multiple groups working together over vast distances. They could communicate silently, adapt their tactics in real time, and even set traps for prey that was smarter and stronger than any individual wolf. Dr. Tanaka explained that Earth's predators had developed something that seemed to be rare in the galaxy: collective intelligence. Individual animals weren't just following instincts. They were learning, teaching, and passing down knowledge to their offspring. The project had discovered that this wasn't limited to mammals. Orcas taught their young specific hunting techniques that were unique to each pod. Ravens could solve puzzles and use tools, often working together to accomplish tasks that would be impossible alone. Even insects like army ants could form living bridges and cooperative structures that allowed them to overcome obstacles, many times their size. But the real breakthrough had come when they started studying microscopic predators. Elena stared at the screen as Dr. Tanaka showed her footage taken through powerful microscopes. Bacteria and viruses on Earth didn't just attack their targets randomly. They had evolved sophisticated strategies for overcoming immune systems, adapting to new environments, and even cooperating with other microorganisms to achieve their goals. Some bacteria could communicate with each other through chemical signals, coordinating attacks like a microscopic army. Others could change their genetic structure in real time, adapting to whatever defenses their host threw at them. And some of the most successful predators were actually combinations of different organisms working together. Dr. Morrison explained that this level of adaptive cooperation was apparently unknown elsewhere in the galaxy. Most planets developed life forms that were either individualistic or followed rigid instinctual patterns. Earth's chaotic history had forced its life forms to become flexible, creative, and collaborative. Project Apex had been working to understand and enhance these natural abilities. Elena learned that they had developed techniques for accelerating evolutionary processes in controlled environments. They could take a predator species and expose it to specific challenges, forcing it to develop new capabilities in months instead of millions of years. The results were incredible. Dr. Tanaka showed Elena a tank containing what looked like ordinary piranha fish. But these piranha had been enhanced through controlled evolution. They could now survive in environments ranging from Arctic cold to near boiling water. They had developed echolocation abilities that let them hunt in complete darkness. And most impressively, they had learned to coordinate their attacks with the precision of a military unit. Another tank contained enhanced octopi that could change not just their color and texture, but actually alter their physical structure to mimic other creatures perfectly. They could solve complex puzzles, use multiple tools simultaneously, and even demonstrate what appeared to be abstract reasoning. But the most shocking discovery was what they had found in human DNA. Dr. Tanaka brought up a genetic map that showed The human genome in a way Elena had never seen before. Highlighted in different colors were sequences that had been dormant for thousands of years. Sequences that seemed to code for abilities that modern humans had lost. The research team had discovered that early humans had been persistence hunters. They couldn't outrun their prey or overpower it with brute strength, but they could outlast anything on the planet. They could track wounded animals for days, following trails that other predators couldn't detect, never giving up until their target collapsed from exhaustion. But more than that, humans had developed the ultimate predatory advantage, the ability to think like their prey. Elena watched footage of modern hunters who still used these ancient techniques. They could predict where animals would go before the animals themselves knew. They understood fear, desperation, and survival instincts so well that they could manipulate them. Dr. Morrison explained that humans were unique among Earth's predators because they hunted everything. Other predators specialized in specific prey. But humans had learned to hunt creatures in every environment on the planet. They had developed tools, strategies, and techniques for overcoming any type of prey, and unlike other predators, humans had never stopped evolving. The project had discovered that human brains were constantly adapting to new challenges. When faced with a new type of problem, humans could literally rewire their neural pathways to find solutions. This wasn't just learning in the traditional sense. It was rapid biological adaptation happening in real time. Dr. Tanaka showed Elena brain scans of people who had been exposed to various challenges. Fighter pilots showed enhanced spatial reasoning abilities after just weeks of training. Deep-sea divers developed improved low-oxygen tolerance that seemed to be genetic rather than just physical conditioning. And people who worked with dangerous animals often developed almost supernatural abilities to read behavioral cues. The implications were staggering. Elena realized that while the Zephyrians had been studying humanity's technology and social structures, they had completely missed what made humans truly dangerous. They had classified humans as moderate difficulty prey because they were thinking like typical galactic predators, but humans weren't typical prey. They were predators that had learned to hunt predators. Project Apex had been preparing for this moment without knowing it. They had spent decades learning how to enhance Earth's natural predatory advantages. They had techniques for accelerating evolution, strategies for coordinating complex biological systems, and most importantly, they understood how to make predators even more effective at hunting. Dr. Morrison brought up the project's classified records. They had been developing something called the Enhancement Protocol. It was designed to activate dormant genetic sequences in Earth's life forms, essentially waking up evolutionary capabilities that had been sleeping for millions of years. The protocol could make sharks smarter, wolves more coordinated, and humans more in tune with their predatory instincts. But it had never been tested on a large scale because the risks were unknown. Elena looked around the laboratory at tanks full of enhanced predators, walls covered with genetic maps, and screens showing the adaptive capabilities of Earth's life forms. The Zephyrians thought they were coming to hunt another helpless species. They had no idea they were walking into the galaxy's most sophisticated predatory ecosystem. Dr. Tanaka smiled grimly as she pulled up the final piece of data. Earth wasn't just home to individual predators. The entire planet was a predatory system that had been perfecting the art of hunting for billions of years. The Zephyrians were about to learn what it meant to be prey. The first Zephyrian scout ship appeared over the Pacific Ocean on a Tuesday morning. It materialized out of nothing, its biomechanical hull gleaming like wet bone in the sunlight. Within hours, 3 more ships had appeared over different continents. The invasion had begun. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched from the emergency command center as the alien vessels hung motionless in Earth's atmosphere. They weren't attacking yet. They were studying, just like the intercepted communications had shown they always did before a hunt. But this time, their arrival had triggered something they couldn't have expected. The moment the first scout ship entered Earth's atmosphere, every animal on the planet seemed to sense it. Birds stopped singing, dogs began howling. Whales changed their migration patterns. Even insects seemed agitated. moving in strange formations that scientists couldn't explain. Dr. Keiko Tanaka was already at her computer terminal in the Project Apex laboratory, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The quantum field generators that had been installed around the world were coming online. 50 years of preparation were about to be put to the test. The enhancement protocol was no longer theoretical. Elena watched the readouts as energy fields began forming around Earth's major ecosystems. The technology used quantum manipulation to activate dormant genetic sequences in living organisms. It was based on the discovery that evolution had left backup plans hidden in DNA, waiting for the right trigger to activate them. The first results came from the ocean research stations. Dr. Luis Patel was monitoring the great white shark population off the coast of California when something incredible happened. The sharks, which normally hunted alone, suddenly began forming groups. But these weren't the simple feeding groups that scientists had occasionally observed. These were coordinated hunting packs with complex social structures. Elena watched the underwater footage in amazement. The sharks were communicating with each other through a combination of body language, electrical fields, and what appeared to be intentional chemical signals. They had developed a pack hierarchy overnight, with larger sharks taking leadership roles and smaller ones serving as scouts and flankers, but the most shocking change was their behavior in zero-gravity environments. The quantum enhancement had somehow activated genetic sequences that allowed the sharks to navigate in 3 dimensions without relying on water resistance. When the research team tested them in the station's zero-gravity chambers, the sharks moved with the same deadly precision they showed in the ocean. They had somehow learned to hunt in space. Similar changes were happening around the world. The Siberian tiger reserves reported that their cats had developed new abilities that defied explanation. The tigers could now phase shift their molecular structure, becoming translucent and walking through solid barriers. Elena watched footage of a tiger that seemed to flicker in and out of existence as it stalked through the forest. The enhancement had activated dormant genetic sequences that allowed the animal to manipulate its own matter at the quantum level. It was the same ability the Zephyrians used, but the tigers had developed it independently. Dr. Tanaka explained that Earth's evolutionary pressure had apparently forced many species to develop capabilities that remained hidden until the right environmental trigger activated them. The alien presence had provided that trigger, but the most dramatic changes were happening in the human population. Lieutenant Ryan Kim was flying a routine patrol over the Atlantic when the first Zephyrian ship appeared. The moment his sensors detected the alien vessel, something changed in his brain. It was like a switch had been flipped, activating systems he never knew existed. Suddenly, Ryan could predict the alien ship's movements before it made them. He found himself understanding flight patterns and evasion tactics that weren't in any manual. His reflexes became faster, his vision sharper, and most importantly, he began to think like a hunter rather than a defender. Elena watched Ryan's debriefing with fascination. The pilot described feeling like an ancient part of his mind had awakened. He could sense the alien ship's intentions, almost like he was reading its thoughts. When the ship tried to scan his fighter, Ryan instinctively knew how to avoid the sensors. The enhancement wasn't just physical. It was awakening predatory instincts that had been dormant in human DNA for thousands of years. Dr. Tanaka brought up brain scans that showed the changes happening in enhanced humans. Neural pathways that had been inactive were suddenly firing. Areas of the brain associated with hunting behavior were growing and connecting to regions responsible for strategic thinking. Enhanced humans weren't just becoming better fighters. They were becoming better hunters. Elena learned that the changes varied from person to person, but they all shared certain characteristics. Enhanced humans could track by scent over impossible distances. They could move silently through any environment. And most remarkably, they seemed to understand their prey's psychology on an instinctive level. Captain Lisa Chen was leading a ground team near one of the landing sites when she encountered her first Zephyrian scout. Instead of feeling fear, she found herself analyzing the alien's weaknesses with cold precision. She could see how it moved, where it was vulnerable, and most importantly, she could sense its overconfidence. The Zephyrian expected her to run or fight predictably. Instead, Lisa used terrain and timing to set a trap that the alien walked into without realizing. She had somehow known exactly where it would go, and when it would be most vulnerable. When the alien tried to phase through solid matter to escape, Lisa was ready with a containment field that she had positioned based on pure instinct. The Zephyrian was captured without the human team firing a single shot. Elena watched the interrogation footage with growing excitement. The captured alien seemed genuinely confused by what had happened. In thousands of years of hunting, no prey species had ever anticipated Zephyrian tactics so accurately. The enhancement was spreading to other species as well. Wolfpacks in Canada developed the ability to track across dimensional phases. When Zephyrian scouts tried to become incorporeal to avoid detection, the wolves could somehow follow their quantum signatures. They hunted the aliens through multiple dimensions simultaneously. Army ant colonies began displaying unprecedented coordination abilities. Individual ants could communicate across vast distances using quantum-entangled pheromones. They created living traps and structures that could adapt in real time to whatever threat they faced. Even the microscopic predators were changing. Dr. Alex Morrison reported that bacteria samples exposed to the enhancement were developing new capabilities. Some could now survive in the vacuum of space. Others had learned to break down exotic materials that didn't exist naturally on Earth. A few strains had become so aggressive that they could dissolve Zephyrian biometal in minutes. But the most significant change was in how different species began working together. Elena watched footage from research stations around the world that showed unprecedented cooperation between different predator species. Enhanced wolves were coordinating with enhanced eagles to track targets from both ground and air. Sharks were working with dolphins to create complex hunting formations in the ocean. Most remarkably, enhanced humans were forming partnerships with enhanced animals that seemed to be based on mutual understanding rather than training. Dr. Raj Nakamura, a marine biologist who had been enhanced along with the dolphins he studied, described the experience as revolutionary. He could communicate with the dolphins not through sounds or gestures but through shared hunting instincts. They understood each other's intentions and could coordinate attacks with perfect timing. Elena realized that Earth wasn't just producing enhanced individual predators. The planet was becoming a unified hunting system where every enhanced species could work together toward a common goal. The Zephyrians had been monitoring Earth's technological responses to their arrival. They had cataloged human weapons, analyzed military formations, and prepared countermeasures for every conventional defense they had observed. But they had no idea that Earth was fighting back with biology rather than technology. Dr. Tanaka showed Elena the global monitoring system that tracked enhancement levels worldwide. The quantum fields were reaching deeper into Earth's ecosystems every day. More species were awakening dormant abilities. More humans were developing predatory instincts that had been sleeping in their DNA. The Zephyrians thought they were studying helpless prey preparing futile defenses. They couldn't detect the biological changes happening around them, because they had never encountered anything like it. Elena looked at the tactical displays, showing enhanced predators moving into position around Zephyrian landing sites. Wolves that could hunt through dimensions. Tigers that could phase through matter. Humans who could think like their alien prey. For the first time since the invasion began, Elena allowed herself to feel hope. The galaxy's greatest predators were about to discover that they had chosen the wrong planet to hunt. Earth had spent billions of years creating the ultimate predatory ecosystem, and now it was finally waking up. Commander Zolder stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the holographic display that showed Earth below. In 3,000 years of hunting across 12 galaxies, he had never encountered a situation like this. His warriors were disappearing. It had started with small scouting parties. Teams of 3 or 4 Zephyrians would land to gather intelligence about human settlements and defensive capabilities. They would establish communication with the ship, begin their surveys, and then simply vanish without a trace. At first, Zalder assumed it was human technology. Perhaps the inhabitants had developed some kind of cloaking field or displacement weapon. But when he sent larger, more heavily armed groups, the same thing happened. Even his most experienced hunters were failing to report back. The humans weren't supposed to be this challenging, according to their intelligence files. Earth's inhabitants relied heavily on primitive kinetic weapons and basic energy systems. Their military tactics were straightforward and predictable. Most importantly, they had never encountered anything like the Zephyrians before, so they shouldn't have been able to adapt quickly enough to pose a real threat. But something was very wrong with this hunt. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched from the command center as reports came in from around the globe. Enhanced human teams were systematically tracking down Zephyrian scouts using methods that defied everything the military had taught them. Captain David Torres was leading a team through the forests of Oregon, following a trail that shouldn't have existed. The Zephyrian scout they were tracking had been phasing in and out of physical reality, leaving no footprints, no broken branches, no conventional signs of passage, but David could smell something that his unenhanced teammates couldn't detect. It was a scent that seemed to exist on multiple dimensional levels, following the alien even when it became incorporeal. His enhanced senses could track quantum disturbances the same way a bloodhound followed a physical trail. Elena listened to David's radio reports as his team closed in on their target. The Zephyrian was trying to set an ambush, using its camouflage abilities to blend perfectly with the forest surroundings. It was a tactic that had worked on hundreds of worlds against thousands of different species, but David wasn't hunting with his eyes. He was following instincts that his ancestors had used to track the most dangerous predators on Earth. He could sense where the alien was going to be before it moved, almost like he was reading its mind. When the Zephyrian finally attacked, David was ready. The alien materialized directly behind what it thought was an exposed human target. Its claws extended for a killing strike that should have ended the hunt instantly. Instead, David spun around and fired a containment net that wrapped around the Zephyrian before it could phase away. The alien tried to absorb the energy from the net to break free, but the device had been designed by Project Apex specifically to counter Zephyrian abilities. Instead of energy, it used quantum fields that disrupted the alien's molecular control. Elena watched the footage of the captured Zephyrian thrashing helplessly in the net. For the first time in recorded galactic history, one of the galaxy's apex predators had been outwitted and captured by its intended prey. But the real shock came when David's team interrogated their prisoner. The Zephyrian couldn't understand what had happened. In its language, it kept repeating questions that the translation software rendered as, "How did the prey know?" and "Where did the hunting instincts come from?" Elena realized that the aliens had been so focused on studying human technology and social structures that they had completely missed the biological changes happening around them. They had no idea that Earth's predators were adapting to hunt them. Similar successes were being reported from around the world. In the Amazon rainforest, Lieutenant Isabel Rodriguez was working with a pack of enhanced jaguars to track Zephyrian scouts through dense jungle terrain. The cats had developed the ability to see across multiple dimensional phases, making them perfect hunters for prey that could become incorporeal. Isabel watched in amazement as the jaguars coordinated their attack on an alien scout. They moved through the trees like shadows, communicating through quantum-enhanced pheromones that allowed them to share sensory information in real time. When the Zephyrian tried to escape by phasing through a tree trunk, one of the jaguars was already waiting on the other side. The alien had walked directly into a trap that it couldn't have detected because it was based on biological instincts rather than technological sensors. In the Pacific Ocean, enhanced great white sharks were working with human dive teams to hunt Zephyrian aquatic scouts. The sharks had learned to navigate in 3 dimensions without water resistance, making them incredibly effective in the aliens' preferred zero-gravity environments. Marine biologist Dr. Chin Wu described the experience of swimming alongside enhanced sharks as revolutionary. The animals seemed to understand complex tactical concepts that would have taken months to teach them before the enhancement. They could set coordinated ambush, create diversions, and even use environmental features as weapons. But the most spectacular hunts were happening in urban environments. Captain Tyler Brooks was leading enhanced human teams through the streets of New York City, where Zephyrian scouts were attempting to study human population centers. The aliens were using their phasing abilities to move through buildings undetected, gathering intelligence for the main invasion. What they didn't realize was that enhanced humans could track them through quantum signatures that lingered in solid matter. Every time a Zephyrian phased through a wall or floor, it left traces that enhanced human senses could follow for hours. Tyler's team had developed hunting techniques that combined ancient human tracking skills with the enhanced abilities they had gained from the quantum treatments. They could predict where aliens would go based on psychological profiles, set traps using urban terrain, and coordinate attacks with the precision of a pack predator. Elena watched tactical footage of Tyler's team cornering a Zephyrian scout in a subway tunnel. The alien had expected to use the confined space to its advantage, trapping the humans where they couldn't maneuver effectively. Instead, the humans used the environment like a giant trap. They had positioned themselves at multiple exits, coordinated their timing perfectly, and forced the alien into a position where its phasing abilities became a disadvantage, rather than an asset. When the Zephyrian tried to phase through the tunnel wall to escape, it found itself inside solid concrete with nowhere to go. The humans had calculated exactly where it would emerge and were waiting with containment equipment back on the Zephyrian flagship. Commander Zalder was receiving reports that made no sense according to everything his species knew about hunting. The humans weren't just defending themselves. They were actively hunting Zephyrian forces using tactics that seemed to anticipate alien strategies before they were implemented. His scouts were being tracked through dimensional phases, trapped in environments they should have been able to escape from, and captured using methods that shouldn't have been possible for a primitive species. Even more disturbing were reports of other Earth creatures joining the hunt. Zephyrian scouts reported being stalked by wolves that could track across multiple dimensions, attacked by birds that could coordinate complex aerial maneuvers, and trapped by insects that seemed to communicate across impossible distances. The planet itself seemed to have turned into a hunting ground, where everything was predator and nothing was prey. Dr. Elena Vasquez reviewed the global situation reports with growing excitement. Enhanced human teams had captured 17 Zephyrian scouts in the past week. Enhanced animal predators had eliminated dozens more. And most importantly, they were learning from each encounter. Every captured alien provided more intelligence about Zephyrian capabilities, weaknesses, and psychological patterns. Enhanced humans were developing new hunting strategies based on what they learned, and they were sharing that information across the global network instantly. The Zephyrians had always relied on their prey being unable to adapt quickly enough to pose a threat. They had never encountered a species that could learn, evolve, and improve their hunting techniques in real time. Elena looked at the tactical displays, showing enhanced predator teams moving into position around major Zephyrian landing sites. The aliens were still trying to conduct their traditional pre-hunt intelligence gathering, unaware that they had become the hunted rather than the hunters. For 3,000 years, the Zephyrians had been the galaxy's most feared predators. They had conquered civilizations, consumed entire worlds, and never met a species that could challenge their dominance. But they had never tried to hunt on a planet where everything had spent billions of years learning to hunt everything else. Commander Zalder stared at his tactical displays, watching red dots disappear one by one as his forces vanished into Earth's predatory ecosystem. For the first time in his species' history, a Zephyrian commander was beginning to understand what it felt like to be prey. The hunt had begun, but Earth was doing the hunting. 6 months after the invasion began, Commander Zalder found himself alone in the Amazon rainforest, running for his life. The mighty Zephyrian fleet that had arrived at Earth was gone. His warriors were either captured or dead, and he was being hunted by creatures that shouldn't have existed. The irony wasn't lost on him. For the first time in 3,000 years, a Zephyrian commander was experiencing what every other species in 12 galaxies had felt when his people arrived: pure terror. Zaldar moved through the dense jungle, his advanced senses scanning FOR threats on multiple dimensional levels. His species had evolved to be perfect hunters, but that evolution had never prepared them for being hunted by something better. Behind him, he could hear the sounds of pursuit, not the mechanical whirring of technology or the crude stomping of primitive beings, but something far more terrifying: the coordinated movement of predators who knew exactly what they were doing. Dr. Elena Vasquez was tracking the alien commander from the mobile command center that had been established at the edge of the rainforest. She watched multiple feeds, showing the greatest manhunt in Earth's history. The forest itself had become a living trap. Enhanced jaguars moved through the canopy above Zaldar, their quantum-enhanced senses following his every movement. They could see him even when he phased through solid matter, track him across dimensional barriers, and predict his route through pure predatory instinct. On the ground, enhanced humans led by Captain Maya Chun moved like ghosts through the undergrowth. They had learned to read the forest in ways that went beyond anything in their training manuals. Every broken leaf, every displaced drop of moisture, every quantum disturbance told them exactly where their prey was going. But what made this hunt truly terrifying was the coordination between species. Elena watched in amazement as enhanced army ants formed living communication networks throughout the forest. Millions of tiny insects worked together to create a biological tracking system that could monitor every square meter of jungle simultaneously. When Zaldar tried to hide behind a waterfall, the ants detected the micro vibrations from his movement and relayed the information to the hunting teams. When he attempted to climb into the canopy, enhanced birds spotted him instantly and directed the jaguars to his location. The alien commander was being hunted by an entire ecosystem that had learned to work together. Elena listened to the radio chatter from the hunting teams. Captain Chin's voice was calm and focused as she coordinated the pursuit. The enhancement had awakened something in the human teams that went beyond military training. They were thinking like apex predators, and their prey was starting to make mistakes. Zaldar had never been hunted before. His species had always been the hunters, never the prey. He didn't understand how to hide from creatures that could track him across multiple dimensions, or how to escape from predators that could predict his behavior better than he could himself. But the humans understood him perfectly. Dr. Alex Morrison had been studying the captured Zephyrians for months, learning their psychology, their fears, and their weaknesses. He had discovered that despite their advanced evolution, the aliens had a fatal flaw: they had never learned to think like prey. Elena watched the tactical display as Zaldar made exactly the mistake that Dr. Morrison had predicted. Faced with pursuit from multiple directions, the alien commander headed for high ground, seeking a defensive position where he could see his attackers coming. It was the logical choice for a predator, but it was exactly the wrong choice for prey. Captain Chen had positioned her teams knowing that Zaldar would seek the high ground. Enhanced humans were already waiting at every possible vantage point. When the alien commander climbed the ancient cecropia tree that dominated the forest canopy, he walked directly into a trap that had been set hours earlier. Maya Chun herself was waiting at the top of the tree, her enhanced senses having detected Zaldar's approach long before he arrived. When the alien materialized on the highest branch, expecting to find safety, he found himself face to face with a human who was no longer prey. Elena watched the confrontation through the helmet camera feeds. Zaldar tried to use his intimidation tactics, extending his claws and activating his natural camouflage. For 3,000 years, the sight of a Zephyrian in attack mode had been enough to paralyze any species with fear, but Maya Chun didn't flinch. The enhancement had awakened predatory instincts that recognized Zaldar not as a terrifying alien monster, but as just another animal that could be hunted. When Zaldar lunged forward with his razor-sharp claws, Maya was already moving. She had read his body language, predicted his attack pattern, and positioned herself perfectly to avoid his strike. The alien's claws sliced through empty air as Maya rolled to the side and activated the quantum containment field. For the first time in his long life, Commander Zalder found himself trapped and helpless. Elena watched as the most feared predator in the galaxy was secured by a human hunting team. But the real revelation came during the interrogation that followed. Dr. Keiko Tanaka led the questioning, using translation software to communicate with the captured alien commander. What they learned changed everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. Zalder revealed that the Zephyrians had conquered 12 galaxies not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through psychological dominance. Every species they had encountered had been so terrified by their reputation that they surrendered before the fight even began. The Zephyrians were apex predators, but they had never faced real resistance. Elena realized that Earth had broken the cycle not through superior weapons or advanced technology, but by refusing to be afraid. The enhancement had awakened humanity's predatory nature, turning them from prey into hunters, but more than that, Earth had shown the galaxy something that had been forgotten for thousands of years. Predators could be hunted. Dr. Morrison brought up the communication array and began transmitting Zalder's surrender across the galaxy. The message was simple but revolutionary. The Zephyrians had been defeated by their intended prey. Elena watched as the transmission spread through the communication networks that connected civilizations across 12 galaxies. Species that had lived in terror of the Zephyrians for millennia were learning that the galaxy's most feared predators were not invincible. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Civilizations that had been hiding in the outer reaches of their star systems began transmitting messages to Earth. They wanted to know how humanity had accomplished what no other species had managed in 3,000 years. Elena found herself coordinating responses to thousands of alien communications. Every species wanted to understand how Earth's predators had learned to hunt the galaxy's apex predators. Dr. Tanaka prepared detailed reports on the enhancement protocol and Earth's unique evolutionary advantages. But the most important message was simpler. Predators were just animals, and animals could be hunted if you understood them well enough. Elena watched as the galactic communication networks lit up with activity. Species across 12 galaxies were sharing information about Zephyrian weaknesses, coordinating defensive strategies, and most importantly, losing their fear of the creatures that had terrorized them for so long. The Zephyrian Empire, built on fear and intimidation, began to crumble as their prey learned to fight back. But the real victory wasn't military or technological. It was psychological. Elena stood in the forest clearing where Zalder had been captured, watching enhanced humans and animals working together to secure the area. The enhancement had changed more than just their hunting abilities. It had awakened something that had been dormant in Earth species for millions of years, the understanding that everything could be hunted. Captain Chun approached Elena, her enhanced senses still alert for any remaining threats. She explained that the hunting teams had found evidence of other Zephyrian forces throughout the galaxy, but they were retreating rather than advancing. For the first time in their species' history, the Zephyrians were running from their prey. Elena looked up at the night sky, where alien communication networks were carrying news of Earth's victory to civilizations across the cosmos. Humanity had not only saved themselves, but they had freed 12 galaxies from 3,000 years of terror. But perhaps the most important discovery was what Earth had taught the galaxy about the nature of predation itself. There was no such thing as an apex predator. There were only predators and prey, and those roles could change depending on who was doing the hunting. Elena smiled as she watched enhanced wolves playing with enhanced human children in the forest clearing. The enhancement had created something beautiful and terrifying, a planet where every creature understood both sides of the hunt. The Zephyrians had come to Earth expecting to find prey. Instead, they had discovered predators who had spent billions of years learning to hunt predators. As Zalder was loaded onto the transport that would take him to the Galactic Tribunal, he made one final transmission to any surviving members of his species. The message was simple: avoid the third planet of the Sol system. The creatures there were not prey. They were something the galaxy had never seen before. They were predators who hunted predators, and they were very, very good at it.